Please welcome Vice President, Autodesk Global Services, Callan Carpenter.
Thank you. Thank you and good morning and welcome to the first ever Autodesk Leadership Forum. My name is Callan Carpenter and I lead the Global Services Division at Autodesk, responsible for product support, Autodesk Consulting, and the Autodesk Developer Network. The Leadership Forum, it's a conference within a conference designed to appeal to the interests of senior leaders in our customer community. It's a different kind of discussion we're going to have today. Many of you are no doubt AU veterans, and you'll be attending product sessions and other meetings throughout the rest of the week. But today we're going to go beyond product training and marketing presentations to touch on the larger business issues and technology trends that are shaping the environment in which we compete and serve customers every day. Now, as Joseph passionately described last night for those of you who were at the reception, the Leadership Forum is meant to be a conversation between you and Autodesk representatives, to be sure, but also between you and your peers within your industries and beyond. And you'll note in the agenda that we've got plenty of breaks built in, and so in between getting that cup of coffee and stretching your legs, please use those breaks to actively network, to foster the kind of conversations that may generate new insights and fresh ideas that you can take home with you to inform your own company's strategies and operations. Now, to get those conversations started, we're going to begin this morning with a series of thought-provoking presentations on strategy, presentations on technology trends which may challenge your conception of what's possible, and a presentation on the interplay between innovation and strategy. And following those presentations, we're going to have a literal conversation. I'm going to invite 4 customer executives to join me on stage to talk about how some of these esoteric concepts of innovation and strategy really come to earth in real-world company situations. So we've got a lot to cover today, so let me get right into introducing our first speaker. So John Pittman is the Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Autodesk. He works in the office of the CTO. He's also a lecturer at the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley. John's responsible for really shaping the strategic thought process at Autodesk and for leading our annual business planning cycle. I hope you find his discussion of strategy, what does it mean, and what's its role in the business, thought-provoking. So please welcome John Pittman.
Thanks, Callan. Well, as Callan said, I'm responsible for corporate strategy at Autodesk, so I end up having a lot of discussions with our leadership team about strategy. I also teach strategy at the Haas School of Business, which is one of the leading business schools in the country, so we talk a lot about strategy. And for all of you, you're all senior leaders in your companies, so in some sense, you're all business strategists. And if you really boil the responsibility of a strategist down to one thing, it's to create 2 reactions. The first reaction is wow. That's the reaction we want to create in our customers. So James Cameron created that reaction with Avatar when he was able to embody lifelike emotions and motion in computer-generated characters. It's something that had never been done before. It created a wow in the entertainment industry. Renzo Piano was able to do something similar with the California Academy of Sciences, the world's first public LEED Platinum building in San Francisco. Not only is it a LEED Platinum building, it has a true green roof. The roof is living and expresses the 7 ecosystems of the San Francisco area. Just before I came, it's Christmas time in San Francisco, and the California Academy of Sciences announced that they were going to have a reindeer exhibit. But this isn't plastic reindeer out front. They're actually having reindeer live grazing on the roof. So something that's kind of a wow experience. And lastly, Shanghai Tower in the Pudong district of Shanghai. When it's completed in 2014, it will be the 2nd largest, tallest building in the world and the tallest building in China. Creates a real wow experience. And if you look at the 3 buildings here, all of them together create a real wow experience for customers. So as a strategist, our first job is to create that wow for customers. Our second one is to create uh-oh. Who do you think might we want to say uh-oh? Our competitor. We want our competitors to go, how did they do that? How can I match that? Because our goal is to make our customers so excited about what we're doing, they put pressure on our competitors have to respond. So ultimately, that's what we want to do. As a strategist, we want our customers to say, wow, and our competitors to say, uh-oh. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you about strategy, give you some basic kind of concepts and frameworks about strategy. Brian Matthews, our Vice President of Autodesk Labs, will come up and talk about technology trends. And the way these relate to strategy is that technology trends often drive strategy. After Brian speaks, I'll come back and talk about the nature of innovation, and in fact, how we can use design, and when I say design, I mean design in the big sense, to help drive strategic innovation. What I'd like you to do is to think about these concepts. As Callan said, they're intentionally high level and big picture. We'd like you to think about these concepts and think about them in the context of your business. Because through the rest of the day, we'll have the panel discussion, which will take the high-level concepts and take them down to business level, but then you'll have the opportunity in your breakout sessions to really discuss these ideas. And I think if you do, what you'll be able to do is hopefully see your businesses as a strategist in a new light. And you'll be able to think about how to apply the technology ideas you hear here at the Leadership Forum, but also through the entire AU conference to your businesses. So, one of the things that's true about the world, and particularly true when you look at the technological world, is that we live through constant change. And Charles Darwin said, it's not the smartest that survive or the strongest, it's the ones that can adapt most readily to change. So adaptability and responsiveness to change is a key attribute of strategic success. Now, when we think about strategy, each one of us is a member of a competitive set. We're a member of a group of companies with somewhat similar characteristics. These are the people we think about every day as competitors. These are the ones who our customers are looking at that we're really trying to wrestle with on a daily basis. We're all members of a competitive set, but one of the challenges is if we're too similar to the members of our competitor set, we become a commodity. And what's the definition of a commodity? Something that's undifferentiated. You can get that same commodity from any of a number of suppliers, and it doesn't really matter whether you get the commodity from, whether I get it from you, or from you, or from you. It's all the same. And one of the challenges in strategy, particularly if we have a view of chasing our competitors, is we all tend toward commoditization. That's a problem as a business. It's from a customer standpoint, if everything is the same and all you're competing on price, they're driving you in a race to the bottom. So by matching your competitors, what's happening is everybody is competing down on price. If that's the only dimension upon which you compete, then your prices go down to your cost of production. That's not a very fun place to be, and not a very profitable place to be as a business. So one of the first things we want to do as a strategist is think about how we create and sustain something called competitive separation. We want to be different from our competitors. But it's not enough to be different. Different is good, but there are two other characteristics that are important. First, it has to be differences that matter to customers, matter so much they're willing to pay extra. And secondly, we have to be able to sustain those differences over time. Because if those differences are easily copied by our competitors, we head again toward commoditization. So this is the definition of competitive separation. We want to do something customers highly value that competitors cannot or will not do. If we can do that successfully, what that does is it takes us away from the race to the bottom. It actually gives us the ability to gain bargaining power to set higher prices and higher margins. And customers will willingly pay more for something that's differentiated in a way that meets their needs. So as a strategist, we're really all about this constant search for competitive separation, and in particular for sustaining competitive separation, because it's a very, very hard thing to sustain over time. Here's an example of competitive separation. It's a breakthrough innovation. It's an idea someone had. They're in the wind power, or they're competing against the wind power industry, but they said, what if we put a wind turbine under the waves? Different idea. Differentiates them from all the other green power folks, and it's a breakthrough innovation that will gain this company higher margins and higher profitability over time, assuming it can work. This is a breakthrough innovation, so there's some risk associated with it. Now, I mentioned that sustaining competitive separation over time is really, really hard. And it's become even harder recently for two reasons. The first is automation. If you look at these industrial robots, pretty much anybody making an automobile can buy the same technology. So the means of production for the automobile, or for any product really, are pretty much freely available. It used to be that we had proprietary technology to make stuff, whether that stuff is a product or a service or a building. That's less the case anymore. Technology is pretty pervasive and automation is pretty pervasive. So the tools to produce things are available to anybody. Similarly, globalization and outsourcing, kind of the way we've kind of restructured the economy, has also made it harder and harder to maintain operational competitive separation. In Shanghai, there's a Taiwanese company called Quanta. They make laptop computers. You go to the Quanta factory, and you can see laptop computers from HP, Dell, Acer, Apple, and others coming off the same assembly line. So while we may have at one point thought our manufacturing, our ability to produce a unique thing is a competitive advantage, there's a case where it's not. The competitors' products are all being produced by a third-party company. So the competitive value, competitive separation, can't be in the manufacturing. It's got to be in something else, in the design of the product, in the marketing of the product, or something. So when we think about this, it tells us that operational effectiveness, just doing things better, is not a strategy. Now, sometimes this is a controversial statement, but I think it's true. Operational effectiveness is not a strategy. And let me explain why. This actually comes from Michael Porter at Harvard, who's he was probably the preeminent professor in the business school who defined what strategy is about. Now, Porter's an economist, so this will kind of look like an economist graph. On the bottom axis, the x-axis, we have a cost position, high cost to low cost. On the vertical axis, we have the value we can deliver to customers. And since Porter's an economist, we have to, of course, have a graph. And what he says is you can have along the edge of that line, those are all the value propositions you can have for customers. You can have low cost, low value solutions. You can have higher cost up here and higher value solutions, and things all along that line. You don't really have things inside the curve because those would be least optimum for customers, and customers over time just wouldn't buy them. So all the solutions lie along the edge of the curve. So that's a competitive space we have. And that works. But what happens to this curve over time? Think about the 90s in the United States. Think about the kinds of things we were interested in. Total quality management, Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, just in time, competing on speed. There were a whole lot of operational dimensions that we competed on. And they generally worked. They improved productivity, they improved profitability. But what happened when companies did that? Well, their competitors noticed. They said, hey, my competitor over here is, they've reduced their, their inventory turns, or they've kind of improved their margins. What did they do? So we started benchmarking, looking for best practices. And what happened over time is everybody adopted those practices. What did that do? Well, it took something that might have been a transitory advantage, and it made it a commodity. Everybody had it. So what happened is the productivity curve moves out. Now that's great for consumers. It's fabulous for those of us who are customers. It's why my cell phone has more computing power than the first space shuttle did. It's why we can fly halfway across the world nonstop. It's why the car I drive has a lot more miles than I ever thought possible relative to the car I had when I was in high school. We've got more quality, more reliability, less cost. So it's great for consumers because what's happened is the level of expected quality, the level of expected performance, the level of expected reliability has moved out along the edge of that curve. It's not so good for those of us who are producers. And the reason it's not so good is that's just an expected cost. You have to produce things along that curve because that's what people expect of you. So it costs money to do that. You have no differentiation. In fact, this curve just keeps moving out along what Porter calls a productivity frontier. This frontier is always growing. So operational effectiveness is necessary. I don't mean to say it's not important, but it's not a basis for strategy because it won't create differentiation. So you have to do it. Absolutely, I'm not saying that you don't. You have to do it, but saying my strategy is to be operationally effective is a little bit of an oxymoron. It's really not a strategy because strategy is about creating those differences that matter to customers. And being operationally effective doesn't matter. I guess if you become operationally ineffective, it matters a lot, but that's a stumble, not a strategic decision. Now, the good news, and you'll be hearing a lot about this at the rest of AU, is that the cloud helps manage operational effectiveness. Cloud computing basically outsources a lot of the IT infrastructure that you can use to create operational effectiveness. So that will help, but it's not completely going to address the problem. As we look forward, the only real sustaining competitive advantage is to be able to innovate. And I think there are two kinds of innovation that we'll talk about today. One is sustaining innovation. That's innovation that basically keeps you on that productivity frontier. It's innovation that stays here and keeps you moving along with everybody else. Another is breakthrough innovation that actually jumps off and creates a new curve. We'll talk about both kinds of innovation today. You know, a company like Toyota is a great example of sustaining innovation. Of course, they've done breakthrough innovation too with something like the Prius. But if you look at what Toyota has done very effectively, it's tune their business processes, and they're known for being very operationally excellent. And they've actually led the way on a lot of operational initiatives. So if you think about sustaining innovation, it's around constant improvement, it's about optimization, it's about tweaking the last little bit out. It's a very disciplined kind of approach. It's about making things big. It's about scale and reliability. And it's really about responding to the environment and responding to trends. Now, one of the interesting things about what it takes to be operationally effective, to do sustaining innovation, is in some sense when you find an outlier, you find a situation which is unusual, you want to throw it out because you want to create that scale. When you think of breakthrough innovation, you think of different things. So this example is from Scott's Summit of Bespoke Innovations. It's the ability to use new technologies like 3D printing to create a prosthesis which fits this person and creates much more performance than the typical prosthesis. So this athlete can actually continue to be an athlete. That's breakthrough innovation. And breakthrough innovation is different. While it's still innovation, it really requires new solutions, finding the unexpected, kind of embracing change. If you think of that outlier that in sustaining innovation we might have thrown out, in breakthrough innovation we want to find that outlier. We want to look for it and say, what caused that? Can I learn from that? So both sustaining and breakthrough innovation are important. We have to do both. What breakthrough innovation does is it creates a new place outside the curve. What sustaining innovation does is it sustains that advantage. So putting it back in our language of competitive separation, breakthrough innovation creates the differences that matter. Sustaining innovation keeps competitors from replicating that innovation. Now, a couple years ago, our Chief Technology Officer, Jeff Kowalski, introduced this idea of an innovation continuum. And he said all innovation goes along this continuum from left to right. New technologies start with the impossible. There's an idea, but we just can't do it. With a little work, the idea becomes impractical. It's possible, but it's impractical. It's expensive, it's buggy, it doesn't perform well. A few people might experiment with it. But soon, as we perfect it, It becomes possible. It becomes possible to do. It works. Then it becomes expected. Everybody's got it, so the technology gets absorbed into the mainstream. And finally, it becomes required. Even the laggards have to adopt the technology. So this continuum seems to play out in the way technology enters the world with pretty consistent regularity. If you think about the two kinds of innovation we discussed, sustaining innovation is really at the back end of that curve. It's in the era where a new technological innovation is expected and required. Breakthrough innovation happens at the front of that curve. So you typically have to invest. For breakthrough innovation to be an advantage, you have to invest earlier. So again, both are important, both are critical. Now, one of the things that we see is the world is changing. It's changing a lot. We have to ride these waves of change. We have to, as we see technological trends, we have to respond to them or ride the trends. We also have the opportunity to leverage those trends, to break off, create new waves, create new approaches.